Hello and welcome to your August mid-month development update, where we're going to bring you the latest on the journey towards the Vasil upgrade. At the back end of the show, we've got a couple of updates from projects building on Cardano, so stick around for that. But before we dive in, make sure you like, subscribe and hit that bell to get all the very latest updates from the IOG team. So Nigel, Kevin, welcome back to the mid-month development update. Lots to talk about today, so let's ask the question. How's it going, Nigel?
Very well, Tim. So we've been busy again for the last couple of weeks. It's just non-stop as usual, but it's coming together. So we've now released the new node, that's 135.3, and we've kicked off all the downstream component integration. We've also released the new pre-production environment. This has come from the different discussions we've had with the community over the last couple of months, where we realised that there is a need for a pre-production environment that is a copy of mainnet. And then we'll continue to develop out our test nets and possibly build more. There is still the Vasil DevNet, which the DApp developers can continue to use. The serialization library is now updated. The majority of dApps do need that. Secondly, we've got the wallet backend, which is critical for the exchanges and a number of other dApps that are out there. The token registry is being updated, and I'm expected to get it updated in the next day or so from the Cardano Foundation. Rosetta's been updated. Once again, this is our key interface for the exchanges, so they can kick off their integration. Ogmios has been updated, which is used by a number of dApps, including some of our own downstream products. We have Blockfrost as well that has been respun on the DevNet and then will be updated for the pre-production environment. We have the GraphQL, and then the final one is Explorer, which is going to be updated over the next day or so. So with all those downstream components updated, we're on track to be able to get through this next hard fork. The critical factor is as we speak right now, there are no category 1 to 3 defects or bugs outstanding right now. And this is a critical factor for us to decide if we're ready to go through the hard fork. So as we go through this, we've got the next few weeks worth of integration, and fingers crossed we won't find any other severity 1 to 3 bugs during this period, and we'll be in a position to hard fork.
Let's dive a little bit into that, Nigel. I mean, obviously, we've previously set 2 indicative dates, and we've had to move those dates 2 times. But that's ultimately because of the issues we've encountered, which we've had to address. Can you tell us a little bit more about some of that work that we've had to do?
Sure, Tim. And it is. We can give an estimate on when we can get things finished or get things delivered, but ultimately it is software engineering. We have categories of issues from severity 1 to severity 5. We decided that because we want a very high quality network, we're not prepared to push out a release if it's got any severity 1, 2 or 3 defects inside it. So we've encountered a number of these over the last few weeks, and that's the reason why we've had to update the nodes and then go through and kick off the testing that goes with it. So every time that we release a node, we have to run our QA testing again. We have to run our integration testing to the components, and we also have to run our own benchmarking to make sure that we've got everything lined up for this major release. As we've been through this process, we have encountered a number of issues that we decided were of sufficient severity for us to want to fix them, Tim. A couple of things that are worth mentioning. We had a wrong parent block problem that was highlighted from our SPOs in mainnet. This was a low severity incident, but we had to fix it, and that fix is now in 135.3. In addition to that, we've done some things that are going to be really helpful for us. So one is to make sure that in the node, we can now understand what node version every person is running. And that's really helpful for us as we go forwards. In addition to that, we can report that there's going to be a number of user experience improvements for the CLI, which is critical to our DApp development community.
So thank you, Nigel, for that. Kevin, let's bring you in now as well. A lot of work being going on the node, as Nigel has said. Perhaps you can tell us a bit more about that and what particularly the SPOs are working on right now.
Yeah, so obviously this has been a huge team effort. Dozens of people at IOG have been working on the Vasil node for many months, and we're all very pumped to get this across the line with the upcoming Vasil hard fork. Everything's looking very good. We very much appreciated working with the community, working with stake pool operators to identify, test and eliminate all the little issues that we've been dealing with and that Nigel has mentioned. So 135.3 We're pleased to say it addresses all of the significant issues that have been raised with us. Nigel has mentioned severity 1 to 3 issues. These are things that we consider to be critical or serious. There are none of these in the node. We do have a few changes that we want to make to the CLI, etc., but we can roll these out safely at the right time, and we won't need a hard fork to do this. So, of course, dealing with the issues along with the need to properly test everything has added some extra time to our original estimates. It's very important that we get things absolutely right with the node version, but we're pleased with the progress, pleased with what the team has done so far. Underneath the hood, there are many changes, so this won't be apparent to the average user, but we've been making a lot of under the hood changes, various improvements that will help with the stability and performance of the node going forward. And one of the most important of this is that we've changed the way that we're dealing with the consensus protocol. We've gone from something called transitional preos. In Babbage, we will be in full preos mode. It's a technical change, but it's going to lead to a lot of code simplifications going forwards, and that's going to help with maintainability and stability of the code base as we move forwards. We're, of course, monitoring all the performance and functionality aspects very carefully. It's fair to say that the testing, benchmarking and release teams have been absolutely on fire, and they've been doing a tremendous job pointing out all the small issues that we've had to deal with, keeping us on point and making sure that we address everything professionally and effectively. We're anticipating quite a lot of interesting changes here. Obviously, there are all the functionality changes that everyone has been focused on, but we think that many SPOs should also see some good performance improvements, and we'll tell you more about those in the next session that we record with you. So 1.35.3, very likely this is going to be the version we hard fork with. If any SPOs are still running 135.01 or 2 on Cardano mainnet, these will not be supported after the hard fork. Those versions, obviously they should upgrade to 135.3 prior to the hard fork. So we were running on the Cardano testnet. What we're doing now is we're enabling a new pre-production environment. This is being spun up to give a clean environment to test 135.3 ahead of the hard fork, and we'll continue to roll that out as we go forward into new node versions. We've also got a new preview environment in the works, and the idea of the preview environment is it's going to be there to let people do early stage testing of new features. So this will be useful obviously for stake pool operators, also for DApp developers, or for exchanges, anybody who wants to see how things will work as we roll out new features.
Thank you, Kevin, for that. So obviously everything coming together now, Nigel, but lots of components, as we've often said. It's a highly complex piece of integration work. In terms of actually triggering the hard fork, what is going to be the go decision on that?
As before, Tim, we set acceptance criteria. We've improved this as well. So the three leading indicators are our communities and whether they're ready to be able to do the hard fork. And that's the SPOs, that's the exchanges, and that's our DApp development community. We've worked with those communities to work out what is our benchmark for those. Now, the SPOs, we want to get the majority upgraded. They tend to upgrade very fast, so we don't see that as a potential problem. And we continue to enjoy their support. The exchanges, they can now start to integrate. And the key thing with the exchanges is the fact that we need sufficient liquidity at the hard fork. So it's approximately about 25 of our largest exchanges that will give us the necessary liquidity to be able to hard fork. There's always going to be some exchanges that are quicker to upgrade than the others. We just work as close as we can with them and trying to get definitely the majority that we need with the necessary liquidity prior to the hard fork. And then in addition to that, we've now got this time around with this hard fork, as all the DApp development community knows, they're our third community that we are working with to be able to be ready for the hard fork. And we're working very closely with our top 10 DApp companies that are running on the mainnet right now, just to make sure that they've upgraded, integrated and tested prior to the hard fork and they are ready to go.
And a quick shout out also, I think, to the Cardano Foundation, of course, and their exchange integrations teams, who are also working extremely hard at the moment to provide the support to those exchanges to try and make those integrations and testing processes as efficient and prompt as possible. So, Nigel, just to close off, what can the community expect to see now going forwards over the next few weeks?
A lot more focus and hard work from IOG and all our related teams and external teams. We'll be focusing on our communications with the 3 major communities we've talked about and supporting those guys to get integrated and tested. We keep pushing it so that we make sure that, as I've indicated before or talked about before, we're hitting everything we need for our acceptance criteria. We call this internally our readiness checklist, and we have to go through that and make sure we've got everything lined up, making sure we have no severity 1 to 3 defects. We've got all the bits and pieces we need ready and working for our hard fork. And the final point is if you want to keep up to date, monitor our Discord, monitor our Telegram, and monitor our Twitter for all our latest updates.
And Nigel, obviously a lot of the community does want to keep up to date. There's a very clear and established process as you've laid out here, but we're obviously seeing a lot of when Vasil out there on Twitter, for example.
Absolutely, and that's the key question. We're excited as much as the community. We know it's going to take us a massive step forward, but ultimately we really have to get this right. We have to build the right quality, and we have to make sure that everything works to the set of quality and acceptance criteria we've got. And I think this time round we're extremely close. We will be keeping all our fingers crossed, but we thoroughly expect that over the coming weeks we'll be ready to go.
And just to reinforce, thank you to all the members of the community, the developers, the exchanges, and of course the SPOs, without whom we wouldn't have got to this point. So thank you all very much for that. And we'll be staying close touch with you over the next few weeks. Nigel, Kevin, thanks as ever. So that's almost it for our mid-month update now. In a moment, we'll go over to Matt, who caught up with a couple of the projects building on Cardano. We'll see you again in September. Remember, there's no 360 show in August. We'll be sure to keep you posted with all the latest on the Vasil upgrade over Twitter and various social channels over the weeks ahead. Thanks very much for watching.
So Seba, thank you for being on the show with us today. Can you tell us a little bit about Milkomeda for those who are new or who need a refresher on its place in the ecosystem?
Yeah, so Milkomeda is a layer 2/sidechain for projects that don't have native Solidity or EVM compatibility. So basically, Cardano has currently Plutus smart contracts, but not many developers know Plutus, and so we want to bring more developers to ecosystems such as Cardano.
So then maybe you can relate this specifically to the Cardano ecosystem. What role does Cardano play in Milkomeda?
Yeah, so one interesting thing about Milkomeda is that we don't introduce a new token. We want to not be building beside communities, not taking from communities. We want to add to communities. So Milkomeda, the end goal is to basically turn this into a layer 2 where it inherits the security properties of Cardano. Because Cardano is one of the most, if not the most secure blockchain out there. And so we want to inherit the security properties of Cardano and being able to add to it Solidity functionality, EVM functionality to bring more developer adoption to the Cardano ecosystem.
What stage of development is Milkomeda at now? What should people in the Cardano ecosystem know?
Currently on Milkomeda, you can bring in your ADA over to Milkomeda and then use Solidity smart contracts such as DEXs and NFTs on the Milkomeda platform. Not only can you convert ADA over, but you can also bring a certain selection of Cardano native tokens over to Milkomeda as well. We're currently working on bridging over NFTs, so in the future you'll be able to bring NFTs as well. And we're also working on a concept called wrapped smart contracts, which would basically allow you as a Cardano user to be calling a Cardano smart contract, which then under the hood triggers the Milkomeda Solidity contract, takes the results and brings them back to Cardano, which kind of completes the user experience. So we have a certain good set of functionality live right now, and we have a lot of exciting stuff planned in the future.
So something a lot of people in the Cardano ecosystem love about Cardano is the security. So can you maybe mention something about how Milkomeda leverages Cardano security?
Yeah, so Milkomeda deployment is currently what is called a sidechain, which means that it has a separate validator set from the Cardano ecosystem, which is why we're planning to upgrade this to a layer 2, which, if you don't know, a layer 2 means it inherits the security properties of Cardano itself. While we're in this transition phase, obviously, where you take user safety as important as it can possibly be, which is why validators on the Milkomeda network were picked from the Cardano ecosystem. So they're all people that you know and have reputations. Also, the bridge cannot bridge arbitrary tokens. It's all based off of an approval process that projects have to go through. We're currently trying to limit exposure of Ethereum style risks by basically creating some asset fractionalization standards to protect users on the Cardano side. And we have a kind of a large variety of security measures we like to add in the future as well. As we add features, we also audit everything we do. So we've done 2 audits so far. We're in the process of going through a 3rd audit as well. So before we release any new features, we also audit the code before the feature goes live.
So if anybody in the audience wants to follow Milkomeda or go play around with it, where should they go?
Yeah, milkomeda.com is the best place to go. And if you want, you can also check us out on the Milkomeda Twitter account as well.
Okay, well, thank you, Seba, for joining us on the show and for telling us about Milkomeda. It's been really great. Okay, so Riley, Tom, thank you for being with us here on the show today. Can you tell us about ADAO, about Summon, and how they came to be?
So ADAO, since last November 2021, has been contributing to open source development on Cardano. It's just been overwhelming, the support we've gotten. We've amassed nearly 24 core contributors, over 3,000 active contributing members and supporters, and nearly 40 open source repos in the GitHub. And from those repos, ADAO itself, along with other development groups, have been able to build decentralized dApps for Cardano. So that's ADAO in a nutshell. And yeah, it's just been really amazing, the support we've gotten and the amazing teams that we've attracted to help us continue this open source mission.
So then how has Summon arisen out of that? What's the relationship between Summon and ADAO?
All of this open source work, although very valuable, you have to be a developer to do a lot of this stuff. Right now, we see a lot of protocols using it to build DAOs, to build decentralized applications, but it's not accessible to the average user. Even a lot of these development teams are so focused on building their core protocols that they don't have the resources to devote to the DAO protocol, the governance protocol. So what Summon is it's bringing that to an easy to use operating system, platform, if you will, for protocols, DAOs, investment clubs to be able to parameterize all these smart contracts, interact with all this open source infrastructure from an easy to use platform, as well as integrate into things like DeFi protocols as an individual or as a DAO.
So Riley, maybe you can tell us a little bit about the current state of ADAO and Summon development. Where are you guys at now if you look at your roadmap?
Just to kind of give a brief overview of what we've already put out, we've put out a multi-signature wallet dApp. We've put out a token claim site dApp that people can use, and we've also put out a staking portal system that people can use to distribute tokens based on other tokens being staked, and all of that's open source. With regards to the Summon platform, we're nearing the capability to launch. We'd like to get on testnet sometime during this month, and we have a token sale that we're going to be running on the 15th of August, which is going to be an open source non-custodial token sale that other people can use and will be available through the Summon platform as well. That's kind of where we're at with development. We're starting to do designs for a lot of the work to integrate with DeFi directly through the Summon platform.
Sounds like you guys have been busy. So can you each maybe tell me one thing that you are excited to see in the future of ADAO and Summon?
I'm really excited for a lot of things. I mean, I think most importantly, I'm excited to see more organizations, not only Summon, leveraging all of this open source work that's being done in these communities like ADAO. I think this model of the Summon Association, Summon Labs, the development company, ADAO, the open source DAO, I think are going to be a really good example for other organizations to leverage and use for themselves.
I'm really excited to see the Summon platform turn into something that is usable as sort of an all-encompassing Web3 portal and operating system, not only for the Cardano ecosystem, but other ecosystems, while maintaining sort of a first-class view for Cardano and keeping it a first priority.
Great. Well, if anybody who's watching now is interested, wants to get involved in ADAO or watch the progress of what you guys are doing, where should they go?
I think the best place to get to us would either be going to summonplatform.io or theadao.io. And we have links to our Discords at both of those sites. Come hop into the ADAO community Discord, get involved there. we'd love to have you as a contributor in one of our many working groups. We have plenty of work that's non-technical for people to get involved with. Also, stake to ADAO, we have an ISPO going on right now for the Summon tokens.
Another thing is, in ADAO, we hold 2 general meetings every week for different time zones. So we have one on Wednesdays, one on Saturdays, and those are open to everybody. So definitely, whether you want to contribute or not, feel free to join those meetings, get involved, hear about what's going on. A lot of this cutting edge tooling is being done in those meetings and being discussed and deeply thought about during those meetings. So it's a really exciting place for anybody interested in Cardano.
Well, Riley, Tom, thanks so much for joining us and for telling us about ADAO and Summon and for explaining these projects to the wider ecosystem. So we're really looking forward to what you guys are going to do. And thank you for being on the show.